Hey everyone, welcome to RicksDIY.com. Today's video I'm going to be replacing a regular duplex outlet. This happens to be in our kitchen, and it used to be where the refrigerator used to sit, and has been abused, to say the least. But the main thing is that one of the two reasons well, first reason I'm replacing it is this bottom part here is cracked. You can see that, and it's just on the ground side. And it probably doesn't really matter a lot, but since I'm going to be pulling this out anyways, I'm going to be replacing it. So, and the other issue is that how it doesn't sit flush or stick out from the outlet cover, and so that's a problem. I mean, most of the stuff we plug in here, we don't, our laptop and chargers and stuff like that. But you know, like this wall wart and stuff for the camera. You know, when I push it in, it's barely sticking in there. And if you have one of those that's really big and heavy, it can actually not be in there or want to fall out. So that's a concern. We need to fix that. So, of course, whenever we're dealing with electrical, as we want to make sure the power's off. So I got my handy power stick here, flute stick, and you can see it's lighting up. We got power. This is the neutral side. There's no power on that side. And then I also have my meter here. See if I can catch it on there. Another way to test it. So see where we're at for voltage wise. So the power's on. I'm going to run down and shut the breaker off, and we'll verify that the power's off. Okay, so I'm back here after shutting off the breakers. Actually, I had to go down 3 times to my breaker panel to shut them off. I got 2 that are labeled for kitchen outlets. I shut both of them off. Didn't work. Went down again, had another one labeled for kitchen pantry. That wasn't it. And then last time I tried, there was one with the outlet question mark, and it looked like it used to have it written on there, refrigerator. So that ended up being the right one. So that's why you always want to double check. Make sure, because just because it's labeled doesn't mean it could go to the appropriate location. So make sure. So that's just reading a millivolts. I don't know if you can see that in the corner there. So it's not really the AC. So we're okay there. Our power's off. I'm going to pull this cover off. Just from inspecting this, and I don't know if we went through this one or not when we were redoing the kitchen, but let's see. I did have a flashlight on here. Just kind of inspecting it, looking to see what we have in there. Let's see if I can move the camera here without causing too much problem. So it's kind of hard to see in there from here, but and you can see where that broken piece is, just right below there. So, like I said, I got that, and again, I'll just verify again that power's off. Go ahead and pull that and start undoing the outlet here. Now they do make a little tool for that sticks in these plugs, and it's just plastic, and it makes it kind of able to hold it when you're doing work, but it's only really if you're doing something live, and I want to make sure the power's off. I've never had a need for it, but I suppose it could come in handy some occasions. Just going to pull this out a little bit here. See what we got. So we got connections on both the upper and bottom. So what that's indicating, and grab something other than that, is that one of these is a feed of power that's incoming, and the other one's going out to another outlet, most likely. Now there are ways, and there's a little tab right here, and on that tab, if you break that, you can actually have this fed by two separate sources. This is pretty common in apartments where the light switch will control one of the outlets. And so they'll just take the power and route it to the switch and come back over here, so that way the switch controls one of the outlets. Now you can do the whole outlet, or you can just do the half, which is pretty common. You see that in apartments a lot of times, and I think even in modern homes where they try to get cheap and not put in you know, any sort of lighting. So the other thing that we have in the back there is the grounds, and we'll see if these are wired together properly. And I've mentioned this before, how common it is, and I think just looking at this, I think I might be right in that it has been wired in properly, but let's find out. So I'll bring this ground out here. Let's try to pull on it. It's pretty tight, but let's see what happens when we undo the ground. I don't really need to undo this right now, but I'm going to anyways. And just as I thought, they're not really twisted together. The wire nut's holding them, and that's a problem. I mean, it's not the proper way to wire together. So on these, what we want to do is actually twist those together before we put the wire nut on. So I'm probably going to do that right now, and then we'll pull these off and replace the switch here. So I'll kind of pull this to the side and back it out again. So with the danger with this is what happens, and you know how important grounds are, is that, so this ground right here is the one that's connected to the outlet itself, and it was just kind of sitting in there, and it was making a good connection. I couldn't pull it out. At the same time, if somebody had pulled this out, the tighten these up or something, and then just pushed it back in, or even replaced the outlet and didn't address this, it's possible when they're pushing it in or moving these wires around that would pop out, and even though it's still held captive, it's actually not connected. And it's pretty scary how often I see that. So you want to get these together as best you can. I'm going to have to move the camera back here, and I don't know what I was doing with that last time, but these are my favorite kind of pliers for doing that, with these kind of flat tip. And just grab as many as you can, and sometimes you'll start with one or two, but give them a pre-twist basically, and kind of round off the tip a little bit. Sometimes you have to trim it to get the wire nut to kind of start on there, but now I'll bring it up in there, and you can see It's a much more secure connection now. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. Anytime you're using solid wire, you should be doing this for every and any connection. Takes a little bit longer, but that's how you do it right. So now I can put this wire nut back on, and even if I didn't have that wire nut, you know, it's not going anywhere. They're not coming apart. So we're good on there. So I'm going to disconnect this, and then we'll hook up the other one. But I did want to say something real quick. And what you should do to all your outlets, a big safety thing, is that, especially on stuff that's high load, so your toaster ovens, any sort of appliance like a microwave, coffee maker, toasters, anything that draws a lot of power that you use pretty frequently, refrigerator, is that it's heating up and cooling down that wire. And as it does that, it's going to loosen these connections. So this is our hot side, and we got our neutral. And one of the most common house fires is from electrical wiring, and either improperly wired, loose connections, stuff like that. So I'm going to come in here and we'll just see if we can get any turn on it. Now I haven't touched this or anything, as you can see, and look at that. I can get a good half turn before that gets really tight. This one's a little tighter. So that just goes to show you how much, and being that that was on that bottom one, it's very likely that's where the refrigerator is probably plugged in, based on the type of plug, the style of plug. You know, it's kind of has like the real flat ribbon on the bottom. So I'm just gonna go back on this neutral side and check this side too. A good quarter, a third turn there on that one. Good half turn on that. So it wasn't that loose. I've had much worse, but it's something you need to address and take a little time and go through all your outlets. And I just do it systematically. You know, pick a room on a weekend day or whatever. You know, you got an hour or two, and verify all the power's off. You know, every single one, because like I said, I found very common that you have a lot of outlets and switches and power, and even though it's labeled, say bedroom, you know, spare bedroom number 2 or something, that you'll find that it's getting powered off of something else for some little thing. Or so always check every single time. So okay, well, we got that. So I'm going to loosen this up and we'll switch it off to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to loosen these up. And the guy who did do the electrical in here did do some stuff good and some other, you know, ways not. So one of the things that he did great was that he ran 12 gauge wiring through the house. And this is a previous homeowner. He was an engineer for Boeing, and so I think he over engineered some stuff. But one of them was he put the heavier gauge wire, which I was really happy with. It's a huge expense, especially nowadays with the price of copper. So for 15 amp, you only need 14 gauge, and this is 12. So 12s actually get up to 20. So the nice thing about that is that if we wanted to, I could switch this out for a 20 amp plug-in, and we could run something that had 20 amps of power. Some of the larger microwave ovens, for instance, use 20 amps, or if you had like a type of freezer, chest freezer or something that had a lot of amperage. So I got everything loosened up. The one thing he did that was kind of odd is that on some of his stripping that he did, right where the jacket is for the Romex, you can't really see it there, but I always got to double check everything because he used like probably some sort of razor blade or something, and a lot of times I'll see where he's actually broken through the insulation on the wire. And so that's a big no-no. And the best way to address that is if you have enough wire, you just pull it out and cut it back to that. But a lot of these, what I've had to do is separate it and then re-insulate it with some electrical tape and do quite a few wraps on it. There's also liquid electrical tape that can work in a jiffy for that sort of thing too. So the other thing to look for is for overheating on your wire, and usually it'll show up more on your neutral side, the white wire, and it'll turn kind of black or brown, and there's none of that on here, so that's good. I mean, it wasn't that loose of a connection. But I know this outlet I hadn't addressed when we were doing all the. I'm just going to pull that screw off. Just make it easy on myself. Sometimes when you back these out all the way, it's really hard to get back in. So if you're reusing an outlet, you don't want to do that. A lot of times they'll get cross-threaded. So there's probably really nothing wrong with this. I just figured that I'm here and I have an extra outlet. And I'm just seeing, so I did want to show you guys something else. So on this outlet, there are these pushing terminals on the back. This is a really cheap way to do it. And basically it's spring loaded. And you would push your wire in there. The problem is that I've seen a lot of them loosen up, and the spring that's in there, the way the metal is, it gives constant pressure, but it only has a small point where it actually conducts electricity through. And over time, on high load devices, that the outlets will go bad, and I've seen them melt. I've seen the wires, when you go to pull them off, they just pop right out, and it's really frightening. So I've never ever used them. I just don't like them, and I'd rather take the time to wrap them around. And there's a period of time where a lot of homes that were being built, that's what they're doing. So it's just real easy to stab the wire in there and push it in, and so I don't like those. Another thing you'll notice is, let's try to see if I'll show you how thick it is. Kind of hard to tell. I'll show you this other one. And it's just a little bit thicker. Here, let me put that in front of it. Maybe that will. I don't know if you can see there, but so this is the heavy duty rated one. And you can buy really cheap. I mean, they're less than $1, I think, for the the cheap outlets, and a lot of them. I don't even know if the cheap ones have those on them or not, but there's a few things you'll notice different. That the whole frame of this is backed. It's really heavy duty. Goes through here. Now these outlets cost a little bit more, but it's worth it. I mean, it's a few cents really when you think about it. 50 cents, $1. Another thing you'll notice is that where the screw terminal goes in for the cover, they actually have a steel, a little bolt there, screw, nut. Try to see if there's any other differences we can come up with. They're about the same. These have a little I don't know what you'd call that, a little catch on them. Kind of sometimes make them a pain to try to get the wire wrapped around there. And those are meant for just putting the wire in straight. And that's the way you can do it. I mean, you can just cut them, put them straight in there and tighten them down. But I guess I've been, you know, brought up an old school way where you wrap it around. And I just like to do that, so. And you can start on either side you want. I already had the neutral going, so I'm going to connect it up to the neutral side again. And kind of just do the opposite of what I was doing. I did want to explain some other stuff too. With the heavy duty, usually the contacts inside, and I should take one of these apart to show you guys. Maybe I'll do that in another video. I'll take one of these cheapy ones apart and maybe, you know, sacrifice one of the heavy duty ones to show you the difference. But the tabs that actually hold the prong of your plug-in in, you know, when this pushes in, it has a larger, fatter tab that pushes against that, and it's really stiff. It's usually a thicker copper than what's on these ones. These ones are still pretty tight. They're not too bad. But this one's like, you really got to push. My wife complained when I replaced a bunch of these in the living room. She thought something was wrong with them because it was so hard to push it in. But it was just because they have such tight contacts. They hold it good. They last longer, lifetime. And it's just a better way to go. Spend the extra money, get the quality. You know, it's your safety that's concerned, so do the right thing. Okay, so of course when you're hooking these up, you want to make sure you put them back on the right side. Usually the silver ones will be on your neutral, and the ones that are copper plated kind of looking are going to be your hot side. Connect these back up. I'll kind of show you on the opposite side. But usually what I like to do is tighten them down just enough so they're kind of snug at first. I got my ground to do here. One of the things I forgot to mention also in outlets and safety on them is how tight the plug is. And in older ones, after a while when they start to get worn, you'll notice you'll plug something in, it barely feels like it's sticking in there. There's not much resistance, and that's an outlet that needs to be replaced. That's very dangerous. So in these ones, it didn't really matter for me, you know, which one went which, because they're connected together, so it's not a big concern at all. Just grab this one a little bit. Actually pull this out. This is, I didn't do it to the other ones, but just to show you that when you have one with a big loop, or if you make the loop a little big to get you started, you can come back with some pliers and needle nose and kind of tighten that loop down. That makes for a good secure. And you always want to wrap them clockwise so that when you're tightening them down, that the lead will actually want to come in instead of out. So you wrap it this way, as you tighten down, I'll actually want to push that out. So now I'm going to crank these down. Get good and tight. And I don't know if I caught that on camera or not, but it actually moved. So we'll see if we can pay attention on this one. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. Let's just see if that wire moves when I tighten it down. This one doesn't really. The other one it did, but wrong way. Crank down on these other ones, really get them tight. Don't forget about your ground. Now we're ready to get this pushed back in. So I'm going to stick that ground in there first. Get that back as far as I can. I'm also going to double check my wires and everything. Make sure I don't have any where they stripped it if it would be touching anything. So it looks okay. Just gonna push that ground away a little bit. Just trying to get that ground tucked in there. This is a nice deep box. That's the other thing that he did, is he put some of these really deep boxes so there's a lot more room in them to get around. But the one thing he didn't do was that, you know, it should be flush with the drywall and it's set back. So in order to address that problem now, I'm just going to kind of get that set there. I'll show you our next little, these are some spacers, electrical spacers. And you can find these probably around the area where like the wire nuts are and those sort of things. And these ones are in particular made by, I believe, Ideal, I-D-E-A-L. And they just kind of fold them over and they sandwich to make it as thick as you want. And it has that little hole there. And that will go on our screw like that. Now sometimes your screw isn't long enough then to actually reach in there and get a good tight. And I have a box of different lengths of these. You know, if you're going through a bunch in your house, it's probably recommended just ahead of time buy them. They're in the same area as these, and some of the packs are just longer ones, some are, you know, multiple lengths. So if you, for instance, if you lose the one from this, you know, then some of these like to get lost a lot. Some are just metal, some are white. You can get different colors, and that's what you need for that. So we just need to add a couple of the spacers now. And sometimes you think that one spacer would be enough, but it never seems like it is. So I always start off with two. Doesn't seem like they're far apart, but in this case. The thing is on your wiring is just to make sure that they don't bind up too much when you stick them in. So actually kind of stick them off, push it to the side first. Make sure that when you tighten it that will be where it goes. So now I think this drywall here is going to get in my way. Grab a razor knife and just cut that Let's try that out and see. If you're so inclined to, you can always check it for level. And as you can see, mine is off quite a bit. So that would be level. I'll just loosen up this top one here. Slide that over a bit. And you have to hold it. Wiggle around, make sure it's tight. Check it one more time here. Close enough. As I always say, it's good enough for my house. So I'm just gonna do one more look-see here and look in there and make sure that the wires aren't in some fashion. If you push them, if the ground end up kind of come back towards your hot, and as far as I can tell, looks pretty good. Ground wires are all still together. Everything's all nice and tight. I don't need such a long screw on this one. This cover actually got kind of a little warp from it trying to be tightened in there. I'll put this cover back on and now we'll see it's kind of warped there, so there we go. I'll have to get another one or something. Maybe that will eventually bend back, but so now we got a nice flush, mount for it, nice and tight. And then the only other thing is we got to turn power back on and verify that that's working okay. And we don't have any shorts or anything that pop out. I always recommend when you do this, when you turn back the power on, I recommend turning the breaker on with something that gives you a little bit of reach, like a piece of wood, stick, ruler, something like that. If you do have a significant short, I have seen breakers explode. It's pretty rare. I've only had it happen to me once. And luckily I was wearing gloves, and I always face my head away when I do stuff, when I do turn it on with my hands. But for this one I have a little stick, and so I always like to turn them on with a stick, so that way you're not in any immediate danger from any flying debris. Okay, I just got the breaker turned back on. I heard the refrigerator kick on, so it must be the refrigerator circuit. Go on the ground, kind of hot. There we go. Neutral and hot. Oh, there it is. Should get it in the right spot. So we're good to go. It's all done. Like I said, I really hope you guys take some time and not be afraid of the power, and go around and check your outlets and switches and everything like that, and retighten them down. If your home's older than 5 years, it's something that needs to be done occasionally. I'd say every 5 years at minimum. And there's some homes that, you know, have never had it done. And thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have a moment to come over and check out my website, RicksDIY.com, and subscribe, get on my email list. Pretty soon here I'm going to be giving out some ebooks, some free information on doing stuff like this and things that won't be in my videos. So come over, subscribe, and get on the list, and we'll give you some of those free ebooks here real soon. Alright, thanks you guys for watching. Have a good one.